kazoo along. And then the last one, we'll pass them out to the adults. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Good morning. I don't know. Good morning. I'm on. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Meg, and my pronouns are she and her. And welcome today. Richard's going to welcome you formally in just a moment, but I'd just like to go quickly through a few important announcements. It's great to see everybody here today, and it's great to see all the chatting and socializing. It's just so wonderful. So let me go quickly through some announcements. If there weren't so many great things going on here, there wouldn't be so many announcements, but we do have quite a few. So first of all, I just want to mention that after the service today, I hope you will stick around because our board will be voting on whether to keep one service or go to 2 services going forward. It's a big issue and it affects all of us. And I'm so delighted that the board is going to make this decision with some input from the congregants. So please stick around and lend your voice to that discussion after the service today. And also the Caring Quilt will also be meeting either separately during that meeting or after that meeting. So stick around for the Caring Quilt Committee if you're part of that group. Also, I just want to make sure everyone has this on their calendar because it's really important. SFUU is going to be doing a community block party where we're going to actually block off the street. It's going to be super fun, and it's on October 8th. So please put that on your calendar. And we need lots of help. So Vicky, our beloved Vicky, who makes everything happen here, is going to pass out the sign-up sheets.
Yeah, if you are interested in sign up for any of these, there's somebody leading all of these committees, so you would be in charge. So see something out there.
Great. So thanks. Sign up and don't feel like it's a commitment made in stone. Sign up. And if it doesn't work out for you, don't worry about it. And then I also want to urge everyone to let Vicky know if you're not receiving the e-beacon. Sometimes when I talk to folks, I learn that people don't know what the e-beacon is. We have lots of newcomers and we're so thrilled. If you're not getting the e-beacon, please let Vicky know and she'll make sure you're on that distribution list. And also just to remind everybody, usually Rev Alex is up here doing our service for us. Today, you get Richard and me. Rev Alex is in San Francisco for 3 weeks on a very wonderful retreat at the San Francisco Zen Center. So he will be back in 3 weeks. All right, so enough of the announcements. And now I'd like to welcome Richard up to welcome you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Richard, and I want to welcome everyone to the Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalist Church. It's really wonderful to be here, especially sitting on this side. There's so many beautiful, and we got some new faces, so I'm grateful for that. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm wearing a light gray polo shirt today. I'm honored to be here with everyone here in the room as well as online, and I really feel honored, and it's been a privilege to co-create the service with Meg. So, thank you. Yes. We are also joined by Vicky, who's been supporting us throughout. We have our amazing welcoming team. We have our audio visual team where Anne, our director of religious education, is here somewhere. There she is. And Patty is here with us in spirit, and definitely want to send my love and our love to her. So today we're going to explore the 6th UU principle, which is the goal of world community, liberty and peace and justice for all. Through this exploration, we hope to facilitate a conversation to highlight shared experience, understanding, and to elicit even more questions. Next week, we'll conclude our conversation about the 7 UU principles with a discussion about the principle 7, which is really boils down to we are all connected. So our purpose is to build a community that's based on our shared values, which can be distilled down to respect and love for all people and the environment. So with that wonderful thought in mind, I please ask you to silence your cell phones, close your eyes, take a deep breath so we can all be fully present. And I would like to welcome my beautiful daughter, Haley, so she could read the invocation.
Hello, my name is Haley. I would like to welcome Lucy up here to light our chalice. And I would like to read a poem written by another 16-year-old called Peace in War by Shahard Zeldin. And I feel this poem is very special to me because it kind of talks a lot about my life. I feel robbed of my childhood by conflict. From here, the story starts. From here, peace emerges from the laugh of every child, from the eyes of every wound. Sorry, it's taking from the fruit of every tree, from the breeze of every wind, who among us does not love peace? Who does not want to see peace all over the land and skies?
Thank you, Haley. So now if you're willing and able, please stand for our opening hymn. As Richard mentioned, we are really feeling a little naked today without Patty. So you're going to get a lot of silly music today. Hopefully it's uplifting. Richard and I planned a few things that we hope are fun for you. So our opening song today is, you're all familiar with He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, right? Well, we're not singing that one. We're singing a completely different version of it. And basically, we've got the whole world in our hearts, et cetera, et cetera. We've got the whole world in our hands. And as we go forward, there'll be silly verses that pop up on the screen. Just bear with me. And if you have any ideas for additional verses when we get to the end, just shout them out, okay? Oh, and the kazoos, Richard. Okay, and we've got a kazoo choir here, so that's going to be really fun. You guys just do along with us as you wish. Okay. We got the whole world in our hands. We got the whole wide world in our hearts. We got the whole world in our hearts. We got the whole world in our hands. We've got mothers and fathers in our hearts. We've got mothers and the fathers in our hearts. We've got the mothers and the fathers in our hearts. We got the whole world in our hands. We've got all of the children in our hearts. We got all of the children in our hearts. We got all of the children in our hearts. We got the world in our hands. Speaking of hands, how about a little clapping, y'all? We've got the earth and the climate in our hands. We got the earth and the climate in our hands. We got the earth and the climate in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We got all of the genders in our hands and all of the expressions in our hands. We've got genders and expressions in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We've got all of the nations in our hands. We got all of the nations in our hands. We got all of the nations in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We've got, I think we've got the climate. We've got all the climate in our hands. We got all of the climate in our hands. We got all of the climate in our hands. We got the world in our hands. Any ideas for a verse, you guys? All right, one more time around. We've got all the water in our hands. We've got all of the air in our hands. We've got all of the soil in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. Let's, the what? Except there's only one race. We've got all of the races in our hands. We've got the human race in our hands. We've got the human race in our hands. We've got the whole world in our hands. Peaches? Peaches? Thank you, Stevie. That was delightful. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We've got the whole world in our hearts. We've got the whole wide world in our hearts. We've got the whole world in our hearts. We've got the whole world in our hands. And thank you, Kazoo Choir. That was fun. Raisins.
Well, that was super fun. Thank you, Meg, and everybody.
Thanks, Kazoo Choir.
And raisins, like that was awesome. All right, so we are going to do something a little different today for the story for all. The theme of the 6 principles, world community. So rather than talk about world community, let's actually build it. Let's do it. And so that's going to require all of us to participate. So I'm going to ask that we all partner up with someone that we don't really know and that maybe checks different boxes than you. So if everyone can stand up and let's try to find a partner that you don't really know that's maybe a little bit different than you. And let's spend a couple minutes finding things that we have in common with each other. And then afterwards, then let's talk about what we learned. So let's everyone stand up and let's be brave and find some partners.
You go ahead, you can go find a partner.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hi there, Kristen. I'm Meg. You want to be my partner? It's great. We don't know each other, so this is perfect. Yeah. Oh, I do. Yeah, isn't it fun? There's certain songs that are perfect for the ukulele. Usually they're kind of silly songs. What do you like to play on the ukulele? Oh, fun. Really fun. Oh, nice. Yeah. All right, so we have music in common. You're young, I'm old. That's not in common. How about, like, what work do you do? What's your? Okay, I do volunteering. Yeah, we have that in common for sure. Where do you volunteer?
Hello, everybody. Hello. So obviously there was nothing to talk about. It was super challenging to find something that we have in common. I'm trying to take this mic out. I'm just curious, would anyone be brave enough to share a little bit about what you learned? Anybody? I see some hands. I'm gonna go to the first one.
Was Jason and I found out that we both love dogs more than anything. So that was a really nice connection.
And now you have that. You could talk about that. And someone else had their hand up. Oh, Milo, what's up, buddy?
Me and Fred had like similar that we both really liked going on hikes and like, long hike, short, whatever. Yeah. Like being out in nature.
Maybe we should do that one time after church. That would be fun. There's lots of good hikes around here.
Haley.
Oh, yes.
I met this lovely woman. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but
Oh.
I don't think she told me her name. Sally. We both really liked cooking, and we both have a love for like 60s music because that's like my favorite genre.
Oh, cool.
So music and cooking.
And Sally is, where is she? Oh, hi, Sally.
Well, I met Joy. We're several generations apart. My name is Joyce, so we have a lot in common. I didn't know this when I said, we're a different generation. So what do we have in common? And I looked at her name tag and part of my name.
There it is.
It's right, something.
Do you sing as well?
No, I don't.
No? Okay. I was wondering if that's where Vicky got it from, because I know Joy can really sing. Oh, she.
Thank you. This is Betsy. Betsy and I are both in the arts. I sing, excuse me. I sing and she's a ballroom dancer. And we have both moved from places out of the area and have been here for like 15 to 19 years.
Wow, very cool. All right, well, thank you. I think we all learned something really interesting about someone maybe we didn't really know. And it'll be interesting to expand on that conversation, as we continue to be in fellowship together. So with that, I would like to thank you. And I guess we will wish the kids well.
Our youth, off they go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. All right. To begin the portion of our joys and sorrows section of the service, I want to start by reading a poem also from a very young poet named Rupi Kaur. She's a Canadian poet of Pakistani heritage, and you may be familiar with her beautiful poetry book, Milk and Honey. When the world comes crashing at your feet, it's okay to let others help pick up the pieces. If we're present to take part in your happiness, when your circumstances are great, we're more than capable of sharing your pain. And because we are a caring community, we do share our joys and sorrows. But this poem reminds me that sometimes it's hard to ask for help. You're honoring someone when you ask them to help. All right. Those of you who know me know I'm a crier. And those of you who don't yet know me, I'm a crier. All right, so from our book today, or actually from our emails today, I would like to share that Janine and Leo Manure, who just recently celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, have an additional joy to share. They're joyful at having their son Mark visiting with them for the last Sunday service, and that was wonderful having him here. And Ann White, who just left us, who's our beloved children's RE director, She shares that there was a fabulous CYRE planning retreat last Sunday at Vicky's home, and I can tell that I know there was a lot of fun there because I was partially joining them on Zoom. And she's joyful and wants to thank everybody who joined in body and spirit to help prepare for a wonderful year ahead for the amazing kids of this congregation. And I would like to offer a joy from our Rev. As you may know, our beloved Rev is away at the San Francisco Zen Center for 3 weeks, and he just wanted to send a big smile and a little joy your way. Thank you so much. I struggle with that. Thank you so much. May everyone in areas of civil unrest and war zones living with the terrible legacy of colonialism, predatory capitalism, and the climate crisis remain sustained by hope, joy, and peace. May they be free from suffering and the root of suffering. May those who are discriminated against and persecuted because of their identities of all sorts, their physical experience, and their physical appearance, may they experience liberation and the root of all liberation. And may every person who has been denied body autonomy, dignity, and human rights reclaim their power. May we strive to dismantle the systems of oppression that we live with, that are so entrenched in our world today, while we work for world peace, liberty, and justice for all. And now I'd like to invite Richard up to share a conversation.
Thank you, Meg. Hey, just curious, did we get the slide with all the teachers on it? Okay, can we just briefly, at least, there it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. We did want to spread some joy and also some gratitude to not just the teachers that we have here because school just started, but teachers everywhere who does more to support world community than teachers. So want to just thank everyone. And we also have a large contingent of teachers in our community that are also retired, and you know, all of their services is recognized, and we're grateful for all of that. All right, so today, you know, we've already kind of explained that the purpose of our discussion today is talk about the sixth principle. And I support it wholeheartedly. Like, I want to live in a world with peace. I definitely like liberty. I want to live in a world where not just my daughters, like all daughters have full autonomy over everything. And the last part of it is justice for all. Like I believe it would be really wonderful if we were able to actually admit the wrongs so that we could facilitate healing, right? For all aspects of society that have been, you know, underserved yes. So yes, I support Principle 6 in all of its forms wholeheartedly. And there's an and. The truth is, you know, because of like my childhood experiences, it makes it challenging sometimes for me to be fully supportive. I grew up in a disadvantaged environment, and so that put me in space with people that struggled in life. And you know, the way that I dealt with that was I would look at those people, and again, even just using that word, like those people, and I would say like, oh, I don't want to be associated with people that are struggling with addiction or drug abuse, or maybe they didn't work. And so then I would put them into a box and I would label them. And that worked out really well for me as a child because they weren't able to influence me in negative ways because I did not allow them into my space. I no longer live in that environment, and I haven't lived in that environment a long time. And I didn't recognize that aspect of my personality. And I kind of expanded it to include later in life, like people who didn't work hard. And so what I've realized is if I am saying that, these, people, right, I've separated them. And if I do that, then the question is it possible that my conscious or unconscious bias doesn't impact or impede my ability to be in community with them? And the answer, I think, is no. And I don't want to be that way anymore. And so, what my goal is in theory to be able to walk into like a Trump rally and not have any judgment of anyone and to only see humans and to be in relations with people from that perspective only, unless given a reason not to, meaning like if they couldn't show up with respect, love, and kindness. But other than that, to eliminate all that. So what I'm doing, my commitment to supporting world peace and community is A, asking my higher power to remove this defect of summarily judging people, and B, for me to focus on the box at the top of the form, right, which Meg alluded to, which is we're a part of the human race. And so to focus more on that versus, all the differences. And the last thing is, I don't know for sure that if I wasn't those, if I wasn't those people and I didn't have their life experience, that I wouldn't be wearing the MAGA hat. Maybe I would, I don't know. And because I don't know, I need to give them the benefit of the doubt, and recognize their humanity and start the relations from that place. And if I could do that, then I would be a stronger advocate of world community moving forward. So, that is my goal and that is my intention. So thank you.
No, I'm sure John would not mind if I mention this, but we have a new member, and Richard's lovely conversation made me think of this. We have a new member, John Wark, and he is our Zen master. He leads our Buddhist meditation on Saturday mornings. And he and I were talking yesterday, and he shared with me that he lives in Pilot Hill, and he intentionally made friends with a man who was very different from him in many, many ways, and I won't mention them, but many ways, including automatic weapons. That would be one example. And they both chose each other because they recognized that they were each very different, and they're really working hard at finding common ground and building a friendship in kind of difficult, they're swimming in difficult soup. And he and I were commenting on how you really only build world community kind of one relationship at a time. So thought I'd share that in support of your conversation. So now I believe we stand, and those of us, I hope everyone remembers this. It was such a joy to create this. Please stand as you're willing and able to sing along with our virtual choir, Building Bridges.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to bridges, we reach out to all our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
I apologize. I didn't realize we didn't have the words up there, so I apologize for that. I don't know about you, but I have really enjoyed reviewing and doing a deep dive into our 7 UU principles over the past several weeks. We know they're there, and we hold these shared values very dearly in our hearts, but I think it's really important that we pick them up and brush them off sometimes and really think about them more deeply so that we can embody them more fully in our lives. So today, as Richard mentioned, the 6th principle is on the menu. And that is the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And as I began to prepare for this service, I realized that the 7 principles kind of reflect and run into one another. And there's a similarity to them, but also there's very unique specialness to each one of them. And today I would like to share some thoughts about how society attempts to build world community through international organizations. That's why, oh, I forgot to do the United Nations. You know what, I'm sorry, let's just insert it right here. I intended to do a reading before I began sharing my reflection. So let's go ahead and pull up those slides. I'm going to spend some time talking about international organizations and building world community. And as I was preparing, in our gray hymnal, lo and behold, there was the Charter of the United Nations. And I went, cool, that kind of fits. So I'd like to ask you to read this with me, the Charter of the United Nations that was written in 1945. We, the people of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to affirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small, to promote social progress and better standards, or life in larger freedom. And to these ends, to practice tolerance and to live together in peace as good neighbors, to unite our strength and to maintain international peace and security, to ensure that armed force shall not be used save in the common interest, to employ international machinery in the promotion of the economic and social advancement of all people, have resolved to combine our efforts to accomplish these aims. Lovely. So actually, I think it worked out well inserting that there, because I am going to spend some time talking about international organizations. But first, I want to explore the idea of the collective ego and consider the role that it plays in building or obstructing world community. I just read a very interesting article where I was introduced to this idea of collective ego. And the article was by Malcolm McLeod. He's a Buddhist scholar, translator, and the editor of Lion's Roar magazine. And as usual, I cannot help myself from adding some Buddhist ingredients into the special sauce of our service today. So thank you for your indulgence. We are pretty familiar with the concept of ego. In Western psychoanalytic theory, ego is thought of as a helpful organizing principle that mediates between the individual self and our reality and others. But ego is not always a helpful thing. In fact, quite often, your ego is not your amigo. I love to say that. I say that every chance I get. I learned that from a young man who was living at the homeless shelter where I have worked. He had just gotten out of anger management class. And I learned that from him. Your ego is not your amigo. Sometimes the ego is an enlarged and unhelpful sense of the self as a separate, special, and very important thing. And this can be problematic for making meaningful connections to others. So what's a collective ego? I know that I do, and perhaps you do as well, have a very strong identity with things like being a UU, a Unitarian Universalist, or maybe an American. Other strong identifiers are things like a specific national identity or heritage or cultural identity. There are many other identities like political, geographic, and cultural identities. For example, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a libertarian, I'm a socialist, I'm an East Coaster, I'm a West Coaster, I'm from the heartland, I'm a capitalist, I'm a socialist, I'm a communist. People have very strong identifiers with their religious affiliations as well. So I hope you see where I'm going with this. We all have many very strong identifiers. And we identify with different groups and different values, and we have collective experience with these groups. And this creates a collective ego, or a strong feeling of being part of a group that is different or special or extra important or extra, what's a good word? Extra worthy. You know, we're worthy because we're part of this group. And that can be problematic. Collective ego informs the individual ego, but and its influence can be very great on the individual ego, but collective ego can be helpful. I suppose when you think, oh, we're Unitarian Universalists and we're compassionate, kind people and we do good things in the world, or we're such and such we're cheering our such and such a sports team and we're having a good time. And that's a great affiliation identifier, of course, until a fight breaks out in the parking lot or the stadium. But in the most damaging form, collective ego is all about my race, my country, my party, my religion, my gender, my class. And these collective egos can actually deter us from genuine feelings of connection and solidarity that can build and sustain our communities. They can create groups of others and can be vehicles of domination and alienation that divide us. And Richard certainly touched on that in his reflection. And I think he showed us how we bridge those divides by talking with someone who we don't know or someone who may be different from ourselves. So I won't regale you with the Buddhist concept of no self or interbeing, but I would ask you to think carefully and look closely into the ways that you identify with groups or have established a collective ego. Your collective ego may be helpful or it may not be, but it's certainly a good idea to get to know it and be discerning about it. Later, we will sing together with Hank leading us. We are going to sing John Lennon's well-known anthem, Imagine, which is near and dear to my heart. And John Lennon asks you to imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Greed, aggression, and indifference. Greed, aggression, and indifference. These are considered to be the three poisons in Buddhist teaching. And while they affect our personal lives, they can also poison society, and they can show up in massive scale in our political and economic systems. Greed can manifest itself as rapacious, predatory corporate activity. Let's see, I lost my spot here. And massive inequality. That's something we're fighting. Difficult, but we're fighting massive inequality in the world today and in our own country. Aggression can manifest in war, oppression, and ideologies of superiority. Indifference can manifest itself in allowing millions of people to suffer in poverty and deprivation. And our relationship, the poisons affect our relationship with the earth, which actually affects our very existence. As Americans, we are part of world community. And while concepts like the white man's burden, remember that? Manifest destiny. These concepts have become less acceptable in modern society. The idea of rugged individualism and American exceptionalism are very much alive and well today. I have always wondered how a person can pull themselves up by the bootstraps when they have no boots. So, are the many manifestations of collective ego helpful? Are they harmful? I submit that collective ego can be a very destructive force in human society and be an obstacle to world community. So careful examination and consideration of our own individual ego and attachment to these various collective identities is a good start to cultivating individual wisdom and ultimately collective wisdom. Richard touched on the idea of peace, liberty, and justice in his offering today, and I would like to focus more on the idea of world community, now that we've sort of beat up the idea of collective ego, of world community. I'd like to think about it in terms of our shared global existence, looking at some of our international institutions, and that's why we read the Charter of the United Nations. I think I was just a few years old when I realized that I was part of a world community. This happened when my mother told me to clean up my plate because there were starving children in China. Did anybody get this from their mom? Oh my God, even some of the younger folks got that. Oh, Randy. Okay. All right. So you know what I'm saying, okay? So at first I thought if I ate everything on my plate, the kids in China wouldn't be hungry anymore. Then I realized, oh no, this is just a big manipulative guilt trip. But it still left me with a sense of world community. Where was China anyway? Was there anything I could do to help the children in China? I actually remember looking for a map to find out where these starving children in China were. So that was my first idea that I was part of a world community. So let's consider our international organizations for just a minute. Pretty well known, one of them that's pretty well known to us and in the news all the time is NATO. But first, I want to just share another personal comment about the perils of inclusion and exclusion. And again, that touches on what Richard shared with us about, we're including these people, but we're excluding those people. And that's what we really want to think about, be discerning about, and avoid. When I was about 8 years old, I was signed up to be a brownie, which is a junior Girl Scout. I was put into a cute little brown uniform, complete with beanie and sash, and I was sent off to school. I felt no pride in wearing that uniform. In fact, I was actually very uncomfortable in the uniform because when I got to school, I realized that some girls had these little brown uniforms, but they were included, but most girls did not have these uniforms and they were excluded. There were many things I did not like about the Girl Scouts, and I only lasted one day as a brownie, one day, and it was a rough day. And mostly because I just didn't like the feeling that I got from being in this uniform, the us and them thing. It was actually really hard for me to join SFUU. I don't like to join groups. And I couldn't join until I realized that there really was room at the table for everyone here to belong and feel comfortable. And there was no uniform required. So back to world community, inclusion, and NATO. NATO, this is just a quick little background here. NATO was established in 1945 at the close of World War II. The history and the evolution of NATO is fascinating, but basically it was created as part of a broad effort to serve three goals. It was to deter Soviet aggression, think Cold War. It was to prevent the revival of nationalist militarism in Europe, and we're still working on that one. And it was to encourage European political and economic integration, and they're still working on that one. But basically, it provided a collective safety net for all of its member nations because an attack on one nation prompted a strong collective defense from all, and thus it promoted good things to happen and prevented bad things from happening. Arguably, perhaps, NATO has been mainly a force for good. NATO invaded Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1992 and likely deterred further genocide there. But the inclusion-exclusion idea of NATO, not everyone's in NATO, and that inclusion-exclusion thing has been problematic over the decades. And it's actually a contributing factor to Russia's aggression in the Ukraine today, at least from Russia's perspective. So inclusion and exclusion at our international institutional level. International institutions all serve a purpose, but it's important to be very discerning about whether or not they support world community, or do they have a veiled self-interest disguised as promoting world community? Here's an example of ignorance and innocence on my part that I realized well into my adulthood. I was in Egypt many years ago, well before the Arab Spring. I was staying with my son who lived there. An Egyptian friend of his said to me regarding USAID, or foreign aid, that you're well aware America sends aid to lots of countries. This Egyptian friend said, I wish the Americans would just stop sending aid to Egypt. All it does is feed the beast of corruption, and it prevents Egyptians from improving their own government and their own society. Well, ouch, I was embarrassed and surprised. I thought aid was a good thing. Well, turns out this is a matter of perspective, and it certainly differs depending on if you're the giving or the receiving country. This soft diplomatic power that the United States uses, while it may assist the receiving country, it really serves a US goal and may not serve the recipient country at all. It may facilitate or it may hinder world community. International institutions and organizations can be governmental, non-governmental, or NGOs. They can be for-profit or not-for-profit. There are actually about 300 of them in the world. And we could probably spend hours on all of them and discerning their impact, their intended impact, and are they serving world community, or are they hindering world community? But I'd like to just do a quick thought exercise with you today. Having just shared my loss of innocence about USAID, oops, maybe that's not so good. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not so good. And the idea of inclusion and exclusion, is that good? Maybe it's not so good. I'd just like to read a selected list of international organizations. Maybe close your eyes if you wish, you don't have to, but it's just a list of 12 out of the 300. And I'd like you to just see what your gut react. How do you, when I read these names, like, how do you feel? Would you give these organizations a thumbs up? Does it feel good to have that international organization and be part of it? Or maybe not, or maybe you just need to learn more about them before you can make that discernment. So here goes. I'm just going to read this list and just for yourself, just see how you feel about them. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent. OPEC, or the oil producing and exporting countries. The World Health Organization. The United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO. The International Court of Criminal Justice. The Worldwide Fund for Nature. The United Nations. United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF. The World Trade Organization. Amnesty International. The International Atomic Energy Association, or IAEA. The International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. So, short list of them. Maybe if you're so prompted to maybe learn more about them when you leave, because I suspect there's lots of good things that are achieved by these organizations, and maybe there's some unintended consequences as well. And I think the whole point of what I'm trying to share, can you pass me the water? Right? Actually, I got it. Got it. I think the whole point of what I'm, excuse me, trying to share is let's all be discerning. When we humans endeavor to create world community, no doubt good things can arise for most. But along the way, things can become diverted and corrupted in some way from the original intent. It's wise for us to all be aware of the many ways that we lend our voices, our values, our votes, our consumer power, and our activism efforts in the creation and support of world community. It's important to be knowledgeable and discerning in our speech and in our actions. So let's ask ourselves, do the choices we make lead to more or less killing, injustice, environmental degradation? Do our choices contribute to compassion, harmony, and respect for all people? The 7 UU principles, among others, are the standards that guide our lives. And we can encourage, as best as we can, governments and other institutions to follow these same ethical and moral guidelines. These simple universal values are humanity's guide to the kind of society and world we seek. Before closing, I'd just like to share a brief thought on the last part of the 6th principle, which is peace, liberty, and justice for all. This, of course, brought to mind the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, the Pledge of Allegiance is certainly a big part of our collective ego and identity. I think we all said this many times growing up, but we're not school kids anymore. And maybe we don't attend sporting events where this pledge is said regularly. So maybe like me, you haven't really thought about it or heard it for a long, long time. I felt pride saying this when I was a school kid, and I felt especially thrilled when I was chosen to lead the pledge. I don't mean to be faithless or over cynical, but oh, how we brainwash our children. I cheerfully and dutifully recited the pledge in the 1950s, long before Brown v. Board of Education, long before the Civil Rights Movement, long before the women's movement, and long before there was even a bit of peace for some. Peace, liberty, and justice was not a reality for all. I wish a wise adult who believed in, I can't remember if it's our 3rd or 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I wish some responsible adult had said, it's not a reality. These words are just aspirational, and you, little Meg, have a role to play. I just wish I had been told the truth, that we had not yet achieved peace, liberty, and justice for all. So these words were indeed aspirational, not yet realized, and that I had a part to play. The cake wasn't baked. There was much work to be done for peace, liberty, and justice, and I would just invite us all to work on this together. Over the past several weeks, exploring our UU principles, Rev. Alex has asked us to examine and be discerning about truth, your truth, my truth, the whole truth, absolute truth, relative truth. Think about truth. And also democracy. What is it? Do we have it? Is it working the way it's supposed to? Things like that. So my call to action for all of us today is to examine the identities that we hold fast to. Are they helpful or do they limit us? Do they truly serve the goal of world community, or do they divide us at the local, national, and global level? Or is there room for difference? Do we want everyone to agree with us and share our values? In working for the goal of world community, what do we keep and what do we let go of? How can we connect with individuals and our world community more meaningfully? Blessed be. Offering. Yep. Offer, yeah. You're reading. Just read it.
So it is often said that the offering is the gift of the free church. That is to say, everything this congregation is and has is only what we bring to it: our time, our talents, and our treasures. In person, this is embodied by the powerful ritual of literally passing the plate and chipping in. If it's easier, you can contribute to our collection by going to our website, mysfuu.org/give. As part of our ethic of generosity, we also split our monthly collection with a local community organization that is aligned with our values. This month, the Share the Plate recipient is the Sierra College Rainbow Alliance. The Rainbow Alliance is a student club established to create community for the LGBTQIA+ students and straight allies. Club activities and events are centered around activism, support groups, social activities, and/or tolerance and education.
Okay. The next slide. And we had planned for Patty to play John Lennon's beautiful anthem, Imagine, Patty had just a personal issues and was not able to be with us today. So Hank is going to lend his beautiful voice to the effort, and I will pound out this beautiful piano song.
And
Oh,
we're
no,
hoping
not
we
to-
all
not to
join
kazoo
in.
for
This
one,
is
yeah.
this is a sing along.
Yeah, this is a sing along. We do have the words up there for you. So
Oh, good. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. Imagine all the people living for today.
you may
They
say
say I'm a dreamer.
well,
Well, I'm not the only one. Now the day you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine there's no country. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I am not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
thank you, Hank. I really miss Patty. For your gifts of time, talent, treasure, thank you so much. And as we close our service today, I'd like to share a benediction, comes from the same poet I read from earlier, Rupi Kaur. And this is called Connection. Our souls will not be soothed by what we achieve or how we look or the hard work that we do. Even if we managed to make all the money in the world, we'd be left feeling empty for something. Our souls ache for community. Our deepest being craves one another. We need to be connected to be alive. And now it's time for our closing hymn, which is going to be lots of fun. Yes. So I hope no one's thirsty. I hope no one's thirsty. Richard's going to pass out a couple of kazoos.
To play a kazoo. You kind of come into it. It's the fat end, not the skinny end.
All right.
Rise as you're
Oh, yeah,
willing or
thanks.
able.
Can we go back one slide? Just back one slide for the title. There we go. You got to, if you don't remember this by the name of it, you're going to remember it when you hear it. I like
To build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Perfect harmony.
I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company.
It's a song
I hear, let the world sing today. I'd like to see the world for once, all standing hand in hand, and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land.
That's the song
I hear. Let the world sing today.
Da, 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 da.
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Perfect harmony.
Like to hold it in my arms and keep it company.
That's the song I hear.
Let the world sing today.
Do, 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 da, da, da.
I'd like to see the world for once, standing hand in hand, and hear them echo through the hills, or throughout the land. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Woo!
Ah. Thank you, Kazoo Choir. And now while Vicky extinguishes our chalice, thank you, Vicky. Let us all say our closing words. I'll take a hand. As we go forth, may we carry the flame of love with peace and justice until we meet again. Blessed be. Have a great day, everybody. And now imagine Patty's beautiful music. Yes, right. Thank you. The meeting.